Hello, everybody, and welcome into another installment of our 2019 football preview series. As you can see by the helmet on the table today, we're taking a look at Fort Payne, the Fort Payne Wildcats, and we're happy to have Coach Chris Elmore joining us today in the Mountain Valley News Studios. Coach, we're enjoying doing this year, talking to all the coaches throughout the county and getting to know some of the coaches. You and I, this is our first meeting, and want to let the viewers have an opportunity to get to know you. So the first question we start out with with every coach is just talk a little bit about your approach to the game, because every coach approaches it a little different. Talk about your offensive, defensive philosophies a little bit with us.
First of all, thank y'all for having us. I think it's great to publicizing and supporting high school sports and football in general is always big to us, so we appreciate it. I think my philosophy is probably like a lot of people, no matter what sport you coach, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, what it is. Our goal is pretty simple, and it's something you put on the back of a T-shirt, I guess, but we just want to try to get a little bit better each day at everything we do, and so we've tried to do that since last January from the off-season program, and now we're into the summer, and of course we had spring practice as well. But as far as philosophies, offensive and defensive, we were talking about a little bit before we came on the air. A lot of that's dictated by who you've got each year, and so I've never necessarily. People always have asked what kind of offense you run, what kind of defense you run, and I don't try to get painted into a corner and say, well, we're just spread, or we're just this, or we're just that, because I think in high school football it changes every year, and you try to evaluate your personnel in the off season, and you try to see what you've got coming back and who's stepping up, who's gotten stronger, who's gotten bigger, whatever it may be, and you're trying to find a way to put the best players on the field in the positions they can play the best, and that's the difficult part sometimes is sometimes it's pretty easy to figure out maybe who the best 12 or 15 players are on offense, but trying to figure out what they do well, and whether they're maybe the guy you'd rather be a four wide receiver team, but this one guy just doesn't really fit there. Maybe he needs to be a tight end more. So we try to obviously look at that every year, and it can change year to year. It can change week to week. We saw that last year firsthand. We had so many injuries in the first 3 weeks of the season. I don't know if I've ever seen quite like it. So we changed a lot in the first 3 or 4 weeks just because we had to. So we tend to be more of I guess you'd say, a multiple spread offense. We like to play with one back in the backfield when we can, but that doesn't mean we won't play with two backs if necessary. We like to play with at least three wide receivers, but at the same time, again, we're going to try to find a way to put the best players on the field for that particular play. And that's another thing is we change a lot based on the game, who we're playing, down and distance, all those different things, and so we may come out the first 2 weeks and be a four wide team, and we may see something on film week 3 that tells us we need to be a two tight end team the third week, and we may make that adjustment. So we try to be pretty flexible and try to be pretty multiple offensively, and but with that said, we try to keep our concepts pretty simple. We don't run necessarily a lot of different schemes. We run about 3 run schemes. We run 4 or 5 basic pass schemes, and we try to get as good as we can at those schemes, and then we make sure they are what I would call a lot of times universal, and we can do them out of different personnel groups, and whether we be in two tight end or two back or empty, whatever it may be. So, but we try to make sure our schemes are they're complex, but at the same time, we don't run a bunch of them where the guys can get pretty good at what they do, and hopefully, as we say, when the bullets start flying on Friday night, hopefully it'll slow down for them, and they can focus in on what they got to do. And then Defensively, you know, we've always Fort Payne's really always been a kind of a 4-2-5 team for the last several years, even under Coach Ellis. And so when I came in last year, I didn't want to come in here and necessarily change everything. And they've been really good on defense under Coach Ellis. Been really good everywhere when Coach Ellis was here. But so we kind of put our spin on the offensive side of it. We kind of left the defense the same, and so we've stuck with that philosophy. But I think the same thing applies there. You've got to get the best 11 guys on the field, and so we look at that year to year, and if we need to adjust how we're doing things based on what players are available, then that's what we do. But in a nutshell, like I said earlier, we try to get a little bit better each day, and try to find ways to get our best players on the field in their best positions, and then hopefully do stuff that they can understand very easily, and hopefully then, as we say all the time, go out there and play fast on Friday night and not have to think so much. And because I think that's the number one thing you can do in high school to kind of mess up a young kid is if he's thinking too much, he's not going to play very fast, and he's going to be unsure. And so we try to make sure they know what's going on, and then turn them loose, let them play, let them have fun, and hopefully the results will carry over.
Well, I really was looking forward to this question with you. Next, I want to talk about the question is your takeaways from last season, but I want to look at some numbers here. Your team averaged scoring 27.8 last year. Defense gave up 24.3. You were in some battles last year. And I know Monk and we were talking a lot about Fort Payne here around the studio last year. Some of the games, and of course I didn't get to see I really wanted to see Fort Payne play last year, but of course I broadcast the Plainview game, so I didn't get to. But then I would come in and I would get the stats and the scores, and the May Jemison game. When I got the stats on that, the first thing that I thought of was Auburn and Florida State, 1984. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that game. That's the first thing that popped into my head. But you guys went undefeated in the region. Again, a very competitive season. I don't feel like the record reflected how good of a football team you had, but you won the games that mattered, definitely. You went undefeated in the region. Talk a little bit about last year and, how much of that has carried over into this year, and what are your takeaways from last season?
Yeah, I think we were in some really good football games last year. We've talked about it before. You look back over the course of the year, and there were from even though the first two games we lost, those were two competitive football games and really fun to watch, especially the one down at Pell City. Went down to the final play. We had the ball on the 10-yard line on the last play of the game.
21-17, close ball game.
So, and then the Scottsboro game was a well-played game early. They kind of pulled away from us late, and then we had, like you said, some really good region games from the May Jemison game, the Hail Mary to win it, and the Hazel Green game was back and forth all night, and we won 52-42, and just a phenomenal game. We've talked back to that game a lot with our players. That game kind of maybe proved to everybody if everybody will do what they're supposed to do and stick to what their assignments are, we'll make enough plays to find a way to win games, and we did that night. And it wasn't pretty at all times, but we made a lot of really good plays at very key times. And I've told a lot of people about that game. I think we went back and looked. We were like 8 for 8 on 3rd and 6 or less that night. And so when you look at and that's kids converting when they're supposed to convert. I mean, 3rd and 6 or less could go either way, obviously. And our players made some really good plays at some key times and on both sides of the ball that night. And we had a really good playoff game with Gardendale at the end of the year. I mean, it was a muddy, wet night, but it was a well-played game. They got up on us early, and we fought back and had a chance to tie the game late in the ball game and just couldn't get it done. So as far as the takeaways go, I think what we took away is this. When we're all on the same page and when we're all clicking, we've got a chance to be pretty good, and we showed that. 6 of the games last year went 5-0 in the region. We also beat Coleman, but we also saw that if we got a couple guys out, or if we're all not focused on what we're doing, the Pell City game, the Scottsboro game, and the Carver game are all three games that we look back and say, we had some guys out for some of those games from injuries and different reasons, and then I know the Carver game late in the year, we just one of those nights we weren't ready to play, and we've told kids that before. I mean, that's why every game, non-region or not, or region game or not, is important. You got to be ready to play, and we just weren't ready to play that night, and ran into a team that was better than us on that particular night. So I think we learned some stuff about ourselves, about making sure that we've all got to do what we're supposed to do to get on the field first of all, and then we've all got to make sure that each week, sometimes it's own individual season, and trying to put to them that way that we got to take it 1 week at a time, and just because we beat Hazel Green, that doesn't mean you're going to beat Carver, and so you've got to be able to put that behind you and move forward, and not sort of rest on what you did last week and try to work to the new week and try to get better. But we were, with all the injuries we had the first 4 weeks of the season, I don't know if I've ever seen quite like it. And I can't go back but to sum it up, in the Scottsboro game, we lost 2 defensive starters before we ever played a defensive play, which I don't know if I've ever heard anything like that. We lost one on the opening kickoff. We went 3 and out on offense and punted, and we lost a second one on the punt. So we hadn't even snapped it on defense yet, and 2 guys are out. And not only were those 2 guys out, one of them was out for the season, one of them was out for about 7 or 8 weeks. So it was just a very unique year as far as injury went. And what I was proud of, I guess, the most was after that night at Scottsboro, 0-2, new coach, a lot of injuries, a lot of adversity. It would have been easy for coaches and players alike to say, this is not working. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. This is not gonna work out. And then we won 6 of the next 7. And only loss in that stretch was to Etowah, who was really, really good last year in a close ball game at our place. And that's why we didn't like how we finished. We didn't like losing to Carver, and didn't like losing the playoffs. But I was really, really proud of our players and our coaches for how they responded in the middle part of the season after such a very tough start for injuries and other reasons. And like I said, with a new coach in here, kind of bringing his new system into, and again, Coach Ellis was successful here. They'd won a lot of games, right. And for me to want to change anything, some people might say that's crazy. They just need to keep doing what they're doing. It would have been easy for them to start to doubt things, but they didn't. And we told them that night that tough times don't last, tough people do. And we had that printed on the back of our region championship shirts after the year was over, and they kind of followed that motto the rest of the year. They didn't give in. They didn't back down. It started with the Albertville game the following week, and really proud how they responded in the middle part of the season. That told me a lot about what kind of players and what kind of coaches we got here.
Well, of course, you changed regions last year. You're coming in as a first-year head coach. In a really tough region, I would imagine competing in the kinds of games that you played in last year does a lot for a team's maturity as far as creating leaders. Because as you said, you learn from week to week. When you compete in games like Fort Payne was in last year, even the wins and the losses, a kid learns real quick the difference between giving 99% and 100%.
Yeah.
It seems small, but in a close game, it can be all the difference. Talk a little bit about losses as far as offense, defense, to graduation, and then this is probably a good time. I know we hate breaking bad news, but I know you've already been bit by the injury bug, you said. But talk about graduation losses first, and how you're looking as far as filling those holes from last year, and then injuries.
Yeah, of course, we lost several guys. Obviously, had a big senior class, but we had two really good players on offense. Our quarterback, Jordan Bain, was an all-region player, and our offensive lineman, Carson Bird, who's walked on at Troy, and I think is going to do a really good job for them. Hopefully he'll get some opportunities down there as he gets older. Those 2 guys are going to be big losses and hard to replace on offense. We got pretty much everybody else back on offense for the most part. So we've got a lot of experience returning there. We did lose several on defense. Lost a couple of really good players in Levy Hall, who was our free safety, who made a lot of plays for us, and Zach Ridgeway, one of our defensive linemen. And we lost some other guys as well, but those 2 guys in particular. Levy kind of led our defense, and then Zach was a big reason why I think we struggled in the Scottsboro game too. He had broke his hand the first drive of the Pell City game and missed the Scottsboro game, and once we got him back in the Albertville game, we got a lot better on defense in a hurry, and a big part of that was him. So those two guys in particular will be very difficult to replace, and we've moved a guy into Levy's spot who I really think is going to be a good player, and Robbie Graham, who was the guy I mentioned earlier that got hurt on the first punt in the Scottsboro game. So he missed pretty much all of his junior year except for one game with a torn ACL, and he's back ready to go, and he's a great leader for us back there as well. But we're going to have some young guys step up in the defensive line to replace Zach and some other guys that we had playing there. Junior Marquez moved there during the middle of the year because of some injuries, and his leadership will be missed as well. So, and then like you said, I won't get into names right now, but we've lost a couple guys already this summer that started for us in the spring and were good players for us, and so we're disappointed for them, and they hadn't had a chance to even get their senior season started, and now they're out. So we'll have to adjust, and that's the tough part about athletics is sometimes injuries happen, and these two young men we've already lost are disappointed, but the rest of them have kind of got to pick up the slack and move forward from there. So we've lost some really good players, but we've also got a lot of really good players coming back too. So we feel pretty good about who we got returning. We just got to have some guys step into those vacant holes.
Okay, well, that's a perfect lead in for my next question. Talk about your spring. It's your first spring with the team, right? Is that correct?
Second spring.
Second, okay. You did get to go through spring your first year.
I did.
Talk about spring practice, how you felt that went, what you saw from your team. And, of course, I know that's going to change a little bit because you've had some losses to injury. But talk about the overall tenor of your team through summer workouts and going into fall.
Yeah, I thought we had a really good spring. That we're able to, a lot of times in spring you worry about losing days because of rain and different things that goes on in April. And we were able to get all our days in. Had a good scrimmage with Chattooga out of Georgia at the end of it, and got some good work done that night. And I thought there was a lot of positives. Thought there were some things we obviously still got to work on. And the one thing we didn't really do in the spring was we pretty much stayed. We had 11 playing offense, 11 playing defense. As we move into the summer and fall, we're already starting to look at certain guys, not necessarily playing both ways the entire time, but we're going to have to be strategic about certain guys playing maybe 10, 12, 15 plays a game on defense and playing the entire night on offense, and vice versa. So we'll look to some of that to add to our depth, because I think it's just something we need to be able to do. And but I thought defensively we had a really good spring as far as flying around and getting to the ball, and offensively we're still kind of searching for a quarterback replacement for Jordan Bain. We had 2 or 3 guys kind of battling out in the spring, and 2 of them being Matthew Shaddix, who's kind of an all-purpose guy for us last year, can do everything, and then J.D. Blaylock, who will be a junior. Both those guys are more than capable, and the good thing is both of them are also more than capable of playing somewhere else if they're not the quarterback. So we'll still look to kind of figure that out about who's going to be there, and then we got another young man named Will Abbott that's also worked there as well. So still not 100% sure who's going to kind of take the reins from Jordan, but feel good that one of those guys will be able to do it well. And we have tried. We worked really hard this summer, especially in the weight room. We've tried not to do just a lot of football yet because we have a lot of guys that play multiple sports. So we didn't really do anything in June. We did a little bit last week, had a 7-on-7, and did some other things, and we'll kind of ramp it up again next week after the AHSA's dead week, and as we get kind of going into fall camp here. But always a little cautious I'm afraid of overdoing it in the summer as far as football activities. I think you got to do the weights and conditioning, no doubt. But if you overdo it, I never want my teams to get to week 6 and be tired of football, and so we're careful about making sure we push at the right time, and hopefully we've done that, and hopefully they're excited about practicing, and because that's the key. If they dread going out there every day, then you're already probably 21 points down every Friday night. So we're going to try to keep that energy up throughout fall camp, and hopefully we can, like I said, take it week by week, and every week's kind of its own little season.
Right, absolutely. Last, we'd just like to take a look down the schedule, and we're kind of getting down in our time, so we'll stick with the region, which that's the bread and butter of your schedule. Albertville, obviously, a new coach. Coach Pruitt left, went to Georgia. So I don't know how much you know about that guy's
I don't know a lot about them. We played them in a 7-on-7 a few weeks ago, and they looked really crisp. I think they're going back and doing more spread stuff that I guess they did 2 or 3 years ago. And I think we caught them on a really good night last year. We had not looked very good in our first 2 games, and they had only played one real game. They played a jamboree and another game, and their first game was kind of a blowout. They didn't have much competition. And we just kind of caught them right. We came out kind of backs against the wall mentality. Hey, this is the season right here. If we lose this one, we're in trouble. And got ahead of them enough, and then held on and was able to win the game. So I expect that to be a really highly contested game. They did not, just like we would not like losing to them. They did not enjoy losing to us that night, and I'm sure they've had that game circled since that night, because I think that was something they weren't expecting to happen based on the way we had been playing. So, but at the same time, we're gonna have to told our guys after we played them in 7-on-7, we're at the same point. We got to. That's a bit when you're in a 6-team region. And this sounds like Captain Obvious here, but man, it makes every game important, because you only got 5 of them, and so every one of them is very, very important. And we found that out last year, and we're lucky enough to win them all. But that game will be extremely important right out of the gate there.
Well, you'll jump right out of the Albertville frying pan into the fire, because the next week May Jemison's going to come to Fort Payne, and I imagine that's one they've had circled on their schedule.
Yeah, that's 2 in
as
a
well.
row. I think we were able to get 2 right there and like I said, the Jemison game, we felt like we controlled a lot of it until about the 4th quarter, and we just kind of let things slip away,
yeah.
and then they had the thing in control, and then obviously we pulled one out of our hat with the Hail Mary. So there's no doubt that they felt like they got robbed that night. So I know they'll be ready to kind of come back over here. And we kind of look back on that game, and that might have been, the Hazel Green game was big too, but that might have been really the difference in the region right there. Us getting that win probably changed the whole outlook of the region the rest of that year. And so that was a huge game for us early last year, and I'm sure it will be this year too.
Well, I could sense a difference. I wrote those first 2 games off, because after the Albertville and May Jemison game, I don't believe I picked against Fort Payne the rest of the season. I knew what they were capable of, well, after that one, of course, you guys go down to Etowah. That's a rival, non-region, but it's big rivalry game. And then you'll be over in Huntsville, Milton Frank, Lee High School. What do you know about them?
Lee has some really good athletes on their team last year, and they were a scary team to play because they had so much talent. And I think it was just kind of hit or miss sometimes. Sometimes we had them on film where they were tough, and I think again we kind of caught them on a good night. They didn't play particularly well on offense, and we were able to get ahead of them and then kind of pull away at the end. But especially over there, they're a team that can score a lot of points on you in a hurry with all their players, and so it'll be it'll be another game that with our region, there is no, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in the state that say that there's just no game that you say, well, that's an easy win. They're all going to be tough, and again, highly contested, because everybody knows there's 6 teams fighting for 4 spots, so nobody wants to be one of those 2 left out. And
of course, you've got 3 of your region games on the road. Next, the week after Lee, you go over to Huntsville again to Buckhorn.
Yeah, and we said last year we felt like Buckhorn had as good a players as anybody in the region. They were really physical, really could fly around, really tackled well, and we had a hard time moving the football that night. And luckily Donald Winchester broke a big run in the 4th quarter to kind of separate us a little bit. But our defense kind of bailed us out that night. We were able to shut them out. But playing over there, I think that they kind of got off to a bad start last year, and then just kind of snowballed on them. If they get off to a better start, they'll be a handful, and that could end up being a big game as far as possibly the region championship, because I could see them being the team that could possibly contend for based on the kind of athletes they got over there.
Okay, and then you wind up your region play at home against Hazel Green.
Yeah, that was a big one last year, and of course there's been a lot of change over there. They've changed coaches as well, and I'm not sure how that's going. Coach Grider left for a new school down in Dothan, but that was a great ball game over there last year. And I know they lost some players, but they should have a lot back too. So I think again, it's hard to say. You don't know what to expect with them just yet because of the coaching change, and not sure how that's going to go. But historically they've always, been able to get it together, and like I said last year, that game was the region championship game because they were 4-0 in the region, so were we, and we were able to pull it out. So if that were to happen again, obviously they'd be looking for payback from the game last year, because I think that's a game. They were up 28-14 late in the half, and we came back and were able to win it. And I think that's a game they kind of think they might have let slip away from them. So I'm sure that's a game they've probably had circled as well.
Well, Coach, the time is getting low, so we're going to wind it up. We want to thank you again for coming in and talking with us today, taking a look at Fort Payne Wildcat football 2019 season in this third installment of our football preseason series. Want you to keep tuning in to the Mountain Valley News website, and also look for us on Farmers as we talk to other coaches from around the area. Again, thanks to Coach Chris Elmore and the Fort Payne Wildcats for coming in today, and we wish you luck this season, Coach.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Building your dream home is one of the great joys in life. At First Southern State Bank, we know construction and mortgage financing, putting today's low rates to work for you. As you and your family move closer to the completion of your new home, we know that your home is where memories are made and families grow stronger year after year. At First Southern State Bank in Rainsville, Scott Kirk stands ready to tailor the right construction loans to meet your needs, along with our staff of experienced loan professionals. Drop by to share your dreams with us today in Rainsville. First Southern State Bank in Rainsville, all the bank you'll ever need.
Folks, this is Andy White down here at Bobby Ledbetter's Twin City in Fort Payne, Alabama. I want to invite everybody to come out to our new location. We're at 1411 Glen Boulevard, right where you turn to go on Airport Road. We've got plenty of inventory for you to choose from. I got cars, trucks, vans, sport utility vehicles of any make and model. Come down here and visit us. Let us see what we can do for you. If you got some slow credit, I've got some banks that'll take care of that. We've got great financing, got a great selection of cars. Y'all come down here and see us.
Don't take the first deal that comes along when you can do better at BobbyLedbetter.com and Twin City Used Car Sales, located at 1411 Glen Boulevard in South Fort Payne.